Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. So I should have published this review last weekend, but as explained in my previous video announcing my next 5 reads, I came down with a cold. It was really annoying and I was just like, oh, it was so frustrating because it was like I was fine, and then the next day I went to town on the Saturday. I was totally fine. It was quite a cold day and everything and quite blustery and that, but I had a look around town and everything was fine. And then Sunday I woke up with a cold and it was like, oh, for God's sake, I don't need this. And so I didn't feel well enough to publish my review, which I am doing right now. So I decided to wait until my cold was done, which was about Wednesday, Thursday this week. And I thought, because I was reading the next book that I'm going to review, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to hold off until the weekend and I'll do them both along with my video announcing my next 5 reads, which I've already published. So yeah, you're getting three videos of me today. I did say earlier before about how I've done bottle videos before, and I'm like, you know, it does kind of look very weird sometimes where you see that I'm wearing the exact same outfit for multiple videos, but here I am again, but this time it was because I was ill. So anyway, enough of that. I am here to talk about the book that I finished last weekend but couldn't review because of my cold, and that is Love and Louis XIV by Antonia Fraser, The Women in the Life of the Sun King. Now, I got this because of the TV series Versailles. I have series 1, but on Blu-ray, but because I rearranged all of my study, I can't find it. I tried to look for it this morning, I couldn't find it, and I gave up. So probably, after filming this review, when I put various stuff away, I am going to go to my study and I'm going to see it straight away, and it's going to really frustrate me, so I can't hold my Blu-ray of Series 1 for you, but I will include a link to the Series 1 trailer in the description. So there were 3 series in total. I only have series 1, and it was a really big drama when it came out. It was a really big deal, and I just loved it. And I wanted to know more about Louis. And even though I do know about French history, in comparison to like English history, I know very little. I know about certain individuals of French history, like Marie Antoinette, but I couldn't, you know, and I know things obviously like, you know, about the French Revolution and, you know, the Bastille and stuff like that, but I couldn't tell you about any other real kind of like specific events in French history or any other kind of real monarchs, apart from Louis XIV. As being the Sun King. That's it. So yeah, so I was going into this book kind of knowing, but at the same time being completely blind. And even though I knew stuff because of Versailles, at the end of the day, Versailles is a drama. It's, you know, it's not necessarily going to follow direct, you know, exactly what happened in history. So I bought this book in order for me to learn more about Louis and such, and the women in his life, because Louis loved women. He really loved women. That's probably an understatement. So yeah, I find it very interesting to learn the history of the women in his life who impacted him, and the fact that I find it is so interesting that Louis is on the spine in his older age, but it's dominated by one of his great loves. It's just so, he's not the dominant character in this book. He's not the dominant character of the French history in this book. It's these women that dominate. It's kind of like, you know, the thing that they say in Six the Musical about Henry, which is about a musical about Henry VIII's 6 wives, that is it case of that we remember Henry because of the wives? Aren't they the ones who are the prominent part of his history? Yeah, would he be another monarch who's forgotten without them? You know, I just love that from seeing the dominance and monarchy and history through the eyes of the women who impacted the individuals. It just clicked with me, this book, that it would just be something that I would really like to read. So Louis XIV, of course, was a great king of France. He created Versailles, which is a big tourist attraction, and where the TV series Versailles was filmed at Versailles. So it's completely genuine location stuff, which I really, really love. And yeah, so this book goes through all of Louis's life, and is split into 4 sections. So the 4 seasons. So as he gets older, it goes into autumn and winter and such, which I thought was really good. And as Antonia tells Louis's life story, she tells the stories of the women who came into his life. And I just found it really, really interesting to learn about all of these women. And it kind of put me in the thought of The Five, which I absolutely adored, talking about the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper and how we put them in a box of prostitute and leave them there, but were they really? And that book tells each of their life stories and puts it into perspective of who they were, and that they were women, they were mothers, they had their various troubles in life. Not all of them had gone into prostitution. Not all of them were prostitutes when they died. You know, it's wonderful that book gave them their lives back. And I kind of feel like that this is what Antonia was attempting to do with her book. Now, I will say, I've read better Antonia Fraser books. That's not me being, you know, oh, this is crap, because it's not crap. It's just, okay, there are a lot of things at play going on in Louis's life, and the various lives of the women in which Antonia chooses to follow. There were many, many women. So the fact that she handpicked these various individuals, these various women, and followed them, fair play to her, that the ones who she picked and everything, and she told their stories well. No arguments there. I just kind of felt like, because in previous books, she's very much had one kind of individual focal point, as it were. Now, I'm sure you're probably gonna bring up, but the 6 Wives of Henry VIII. Yeah. She did do a book about them, and everything, which I read, and I enjoyed it. I thought she told their stories very well. But the thing is that with those wives, they are, even though there's 6 of them, and she is telling the story, they're very much, solely focused on. There's very little overlap. Of course, there is a bit, because Anne Boleyn was one of the ladies in waitings to Catherine of Aragon, so the second wife did serve the first wife. So where there is that slight overlap because of being ladies in waiting, obviously there is that connection there, but other than that, they're completely separated. So she does give complete full focus, whereas in this one, because there are so much overlap, because they're constantly interacting with each other, I kind of felt like, in a way, that she kind of lost her focus on individuals at time. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that this book is crap, because it's not. It's just a case of that I think she's written better. And I think maybe it's because of that structural thing of that she's completely focused on the one individual, either entirely as the book or, in distinct certain chunks. And also you've got Louis at the same time, because she follows Louis's life and she follows the lives of all of these women that come into his path. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I don't know, maybe if she had picked fewer women. You know, you could argue that maybe the structuring would have been stronger like her other books, but it's not like she's writing about 20 plus women. You know what I mean? She's only looking at you know, a handful. So yeah, so it's a bit of a tricky one. It's a bit of a tricky one. But overall, I think she did well with what she wrote. It was succinctly written. I think she captured Versailles well. I found her portrayal of the women very, very interesting. Especially, like, you know, there's this whole thing with Louis's wife, the Queen, who the belief that she had a child, a baby girl, who was black, that she'd had an affair with a black man, and she'd had this black child, because there was a nun who had grown up all her life in a nunnery, and she stayed part of the church and everything. And she was black, and she was the only black woman in the nunnery, at least, you know, that was indicated in this book and the TV series Versailles. And Louis actually put in you know, like a will, or, you know, kind of writing to say that she directly would get a certain amount of money from him every year of her life, and even and to the church, the nunnery and such, a separate amount where she was staying. No matter where she went in the world, that money would still go to her and to whichever church or nunnery that she were to move to. So why would he do that? If this woman, this random woman, why would she get that money? And so there's the belief that the Queen had a child, a baby girl, who was given away at birth and raised in this nunnery. So, you know, there are, you know, she's very the way that she writes the story, like, you know, this woman, is very intriguing. The facts, you know, and everything, how she displays it, is not as what am I trying to say? Think, Becky, think. What are you trying to say? It's not as decoratively written as previous books. I don't feel completely immersed in the world of Versailles. I see it as being this shiny, beautiful thing, and these are the people. It kind of a bit like the facade. Even though I'm learning about the backgrounds of their lives, I don't feel completely like I am a courtier in Versailles. It's, you know, it kind of feels a little bit like I've got a screen between me, like the whole thing of, you know, the whole bastard child that the Queen had, and I was like, oh God, you know, I was thinking, like, yeah, if that's true and everything, you know, the emotions that the Queen went through having to deal with that and all of that lot, and it kind of felt like, no, we're not really gonna go up against that glass and smash the glass and talk about, you know, if it was true, kind of like what the Queen was feeling around that time. Had she been ill, you know, that kind of thing. I just kind of, yeah, I kind of felt like I was watching a TV screen. It was like, you know, I'm seeing like the drama, I'm seeing stuff play out, but I don't connect with individuals and such like I have in her previous books. And maybe, I think probably because of, like I said, because there were so many characters and there was so much overlap, and, you know, there's a lot of courtiers that get referenced. There's a lot of individuals playing out in this, and at the same time, you know, this is only a tiny amount of individuals compared to the whole of Versailles, because Versailles was designed as a place where people didn't just like go for a little bit. They lived there. They were, for years and years, lived there. So it was kind of like, if you got in, you were, you were, I was going to say you were good for life, but then at the same time, you're in a lot of danger. That any slight thing that you say or do could really put you in a good place or the worst possible place. There was a lot of scandals that happened in Versailles, and yeah, it's kind of like the greatest but the most dangerous place in the world to have been in at the time. And I find it's very, very interesting. The way in which she portrays Louis very much, he does kind of remind me of Henry VIII a bit, that at any moment he could suddenly switch, like that. But at the same time, he's not necessarily screaming his head off, fit of rage like Henry VIII was. But it's a subtle kind of like a sharp wit sentence or something like that. And the fact that he needed like 10 people watching him get up, get dressed, have a bath, eat his meals, he could never cope with being alone. You can kind of understand why he just constantly needed somebody there, and so he went for the women who he had complete access to. He's a very interesting character. I find his relationship with his mother quite fascinating, and his brother as well. But yeah, I won't delve into too much about that because obviously it spoilers all that lot. But then you can look up Wikipedia, and Wikipedia will probably tell you stuff. But yes, I do. So yeah, it is vivid, but at the same time, I feel this disconnection. You have all of these various characters that are in there, but I don't feel a part. I don't feel part of the group, as it were. It tells various stories well of these women, but at the same time, I don't feel completely sucked in. So it's not bad, but it's not her best. It's just a little bit frustrating, this one. Antonia Fraser, she is, as always, completely sympathetic to the situations of the people who she's writing about. She doesn't, write them as like completely wooden characters, as it were, because, these were people and there was a lot of stuff going on. But I kind of felt like, as I said, Versailles could be a very, very dangerous place for you to be, depending on your position and everything. And I didn't feel the danger. I didn't feel the weight. So yeah, I kind of feel a bit let down by this book, I'll say. I'm going to read you a little bit from this book. This is chapter 12, and this is Mary Beatrice. Mary Beatrice, just so you are aware, Mary Beatrice, she was Charles II's sister, I think. Yes, my English history works well in my brain right now on a gloomy, wet Sunday morning. I believe it's Charles II's sister. So this is her about her life and everything. This is one of the women who are focused on. So. Mary Beatrice, the fugitive Queen of England who flung herself upon the mercies of Louis XIV, was no longer the shy, sweet princess who had passed through France on her way to marriage 15 years earlier. Then the tender king had described himself to the pretty teenager as her godfather. She was, after all, the daughter of Marinette Laura Mazzoni. I'm completely butchering the name, I'm sorry. Who had been matched by her cardinal uncle to the future Duke of Modena. But Mary Beatrice's marriage had been from the first extremely testing both privately and publicly, and she had changed. In 1673, at the age of 15, she found herself matched to an ageing and not particularly proposing prince, 25 years her senior, James, the Duke of York. Oh no, sorry, I've got completely wrong person in history. So James was her husband. Had been a dashing soldier in his youth, but somehow the stewards, those who kept their heads, did not improve with age. He was also a notorious roue like his brother Charles, but without the charm that enabled the Mersey monarch to carry these things off. So ugly were his mistresses that Charles wittily suggested that they had been imposed upon him by his confessors. The young Catholic Duchess of York had to tolerate her husband's bastards as well as the two Protestant daughters by his first wife, Mary and Anne. James's marriage was from the first extremely unpopular in the country, understandably so, since Charles II's intention in agreeing to it was to curry favour with the French king rather than the English Parliament. The Protestants were cheered when Mary Beatrice, devastated by the fact that she appeared to be able to bear children that survived beyond infancy. Isabella, who had died in 1681, reached 4.5. The rest died at birth or very young, and there were at least 4 miscarriages, the last in May of 1684. This meant that the Protestant Mary, since 1677, wife of William of Orange, would in the course of time succeed. Her equally Protestant sister Anne, wife of George of Denmark, would follow her, should William and Mary have no children. Perhaps the Protestants were foolhardy in supposing that a woman still in her 20s who had conceived 9 times in 10 years would not do so again. At any rate, in the autumn of 1687, Mary Beatrice found herself pregnant once more. Possibly the therapeutic mineral waters of Bath, which she had visited in September, were responsible for her renewed fertility, or even a visit to the miraculous Winifred's Well in North Wales a few years earlier. A day of Thanksgiving in England was decreed on the 23rd of December in the hope that the Queen might be in the joyful mother of children. My mind just went completely blank just staring at the page then. I don't know why. Maybe I'm still tired. I don't know. The invocation of the Irish Catholic poet Diarmaid McCarthy and God might vouchsafe a son and heir to James, whom he called that bright shining star of bliss, was not, however, generally shared, nor for that matter was his lyrical description of James himself. The trouble was that this child, if male, would be heir to the throne and Catholic. By the time Mary Beatrice did give birth to a healthy boy on the 1st of June 1688, it was found necessary to invent such fantasies as the baby having been smuggled into the Queen's chamber in a warming pan. This despite the usual presence of a vast number of courtiers on the occasion, including Protestants. Yet the birth so long awaited by Mary Beatrice and James was undoubtedly the catalyst for the crisis that erupted in England politics to the high summer of 1688, resulting in the invitation to William of Orange by a group of Whig grandees. So, do you see what I mean? Where I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, I see. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people that's being covered there, and it's just kind of that's 2 pages of a near 400-page book. Once you get through the, hang on, oh no, that's all the notes and everything. 398-page book. It just kind of felt like I felt disconnected. I felt just a bit blocked in places, and even though it was a good book, it's not her best book. It was just okay, which is a shame, but then I'm not going to like every book that an author produces, and I do like Antonia Fraser. I think she's a really, really great biographer. I just kind of feel like this is just one of her duds. I'm sorry, my phone keeps on buzzing like crazy. There's loads of messages going on. Alerts, sorry. That's just kept on distracting me throughout this review, so sorry about that. But yeah, it just kind of feels a bit lackluster. So even though I did enjoy it, it's probably a 3 out of 5. So, yeah. So those are my thoughts on Love and Louis XIV by Antonia Fraser. So time for my questions. Would I read this again? Yeah, maybe, but I'm not all that fussed. I'm totally happy to go without reading this again. But I won't say no to reading it again if I had nothing else to read. So, yeah. Would I read any more of Antonia's books? Well, I love Antonia Fraser's books. I think they're great. It's just, this just happened to be a bit of a dud for me. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, but I would let them know that it's not her best, and perhaps there might be some other books that relate to the women in the lives of Louis the XIV. I don't know, because I haven't looked into if each of these women, there are specific books just focused on them, so they would give them a better history, as it were, a better, clearer picture of their lives and everything. But if someone was just generally interested, like me, like going, for Versailles, and it led me to this book, I would say, yeah, check it out. But there might be some other books out there about these women in more depth that might be of interest. So, yeah, so those are my thoughts on Love and Louis XIV. And of course, there's the Versailles TV drama, which I really like, which I will include the trailer to in the description below. So, have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Give me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Entirely I'll let you decide. And I will be right back with my thoughts on How to Be a Heroine by Samantha Ellis. All right then, guys. Bye.